Your brain is the most powerful tool you own, but are you making it stronger? Every day is a chance to sharpen your edge, build new connections, and unlock your potential. Don't just live, evolve. My name is Professor Alex Horniak, and this is ACEMED Minutes. Train your brain. What if we've been telling ourselves the wrong story? For centuries, we have wrestled with a fundamental question, one that sits at the very core of who we are. Are people, at their heart, good? Or are we fundamentally selfish, brutish, and in need of constant supervision to keep our darker impulses in check? This isn't just a philosophical game. The answer we choose shapes everything. It dictates how we design our schools, how we run our businesses, and how we build our societies. It determines whether we meet our neighbors with suspicion or with an open hand. It is the invisible architecture of our world, and for too long we have built it on a foundation of cynicism. When a stranger on the street smiles, do we see a threat or a moment of connection? When we read news headlines filled with crime and conflict, do we see proof of our fallen nature, or do we see the loud tragic exceptions to a quieter, more cooperative rule? We are bombarded with images of humanity at its worst. It's what sells newspapers and what fuels political rhetoric. This constant stream of negativity creates a veneer, a thin layer of belief that humans are wolves to other humans. But what if this veneer is just that, a fragile surface hiding a much more hopeful and resilient reality underneath? This debate is not new. It has been argued in smoke-filled salons and written about in dusty tomes for centuries. On one side, we have the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes. Writing in a time of brutal civil war, he painted a grim picture of human nature. In his famous work, Leviathan, Hobbes argued that life in a state of nature would be a war of all against all. He believed our natural condition is one of fear, violence, and a constant scramble for survival. In this world, life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. On the other side of the argument stands the Genevan philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He offered a radically different vision. Rousseau believed that we are born good, compassionate, and pure. It is society, he argued, that corrupts us. He imagined that in our natural state, we lived as noble savages, free from jealousy, free from greed, free from vanity that plague modern civilization. For Rousseau, things like private property and social hierarchy were the original sins. They turned us against each other, creating inequality and conflict where there was once harmony. The Hobbesian view has, for the most part, won the day. It underpins much of our modern economic theory, which assumes people are rational and self-interested actors. It is the foundation of realist political science, which sees nations in a constant power struggle. We see it in reality television shows that encourage contestants to backstab and betray each other for a cash prize, framing it as a reflection of the real world. This cynical perspective is so deeply embedded in our culture that we often don't even recognize it as a theory. Forget the theories for a moment and look at reality. When disaster strikes, what really happens? The popular image, fueled by countless Hollywood movies, is one of chaos. We picture widespread panic, looting, a desperate every man for himself struggle. But study after study of actual disasters reveals the exact opposite. Earthquakes, floods, terrorist attacks. The first response is almost always a massive wave of altruism. Volunteers in bright vests working together to clean up and organize. Strangers risk their own lives to pull others from rubble. Neighbors share their last supplies of food and water. People form spontaneous volunteer groups, direct traffic, care for the injured, search for the missing. In moments of crisis, our instinct is not to turn on each other, but to turn to each other. This isn't a fluke. It seems to be wired into us. Psychologists have a term for it, elite panic. The people who actually panic are often the authorities. Mayors, generals, CEOs. They operate from a cynical Hobbesian worldview and assume the public will descend into chaos. They lock down cities. They send in armed troops, sometimes making the situation worse. The general population, meanwhile, is busy cooperating. When everyday routine is stripped away, what is revealed is a deep-seated instinct for solidarity. We are not selfish creatures at our core. We are profoundly social. Consider the simple act of a baby pointing. An infant will point to share the experience, not just to get something. They want you to look too. They want you to see what they see. Interesting, isn't it? Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, don't do this. They might gesture to demand food, but they don't point simply to share attention. Our sharing is very human. From our earliest moments, we are driven by an impulse to connect and share our world. Our social nature isn't a layer we add on, it is the foundation of our consciousness. This innate goodness is what I call homo puppy. If we are so naturally good and cooperative, a crucial question arises. Why do we need laws? Why do we need police? Why do we need governments at all? If our default setting is kindness, why is so much of human history a catalogue of war? Why oppression? Why injustice? This is the paradox that seems to support the cynical view. The existence of armies feels like undeniable proof of our inherent flaws. Prisons feel like undeniable proof. If we were truly angels, we wouldn't need a system of sticks. We wouldn't need a system of carrots. The answer, however, is more complex than it seems. It lies not in our innate evil. It lies in a relatively recent invention, civilization itself. For about 95% of our time on this planet, humans lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers. In these small mobile groups there were no kings, no priests, no police force. There was also very little inequality. Resources were shared. Because everyone knew everyone else, reputation was everything. It was difficult to be a bully or a freeloader when you were constantly dependent on the goodwill of your small band. Everything changed with the invention of agriculture about 10,000 years ago. For the first time we settled down. We began to own land. We began to accumulate possessions. We began to live in much larger groups of strangers. This was the birth of civilization, and with it came a host of new problems. Private property created inequality. Private property also created jealousy. Living among strangers meant the old system of social pressure based on reputation no longer worked. You could now be anonymous. This new, large-scale way of living created the conditions for our darker side to emerge. Here we arrive at the heart of the human paradox. Our greatest strength is also the source of our greatest potential for cruelty. We are incredibly good at forming groups and cooperating within them. We are loyal, empathetic, and altruistic toward our in-group, our family, our tribe, our team, our nation. This is the bright side of our social nature. But this same instinct has a dark flip side. It makes us suspicious, fearful, and sometimes hostile toward the outgroup. The same psychological mechanism that allows a soldier to die for his comrades allows him to kill an enemy he has never met. Our capacity for love and our capacity for hate are two sides of the same coin. This is why the story isn't as simple as people are good. We are good, but often only to us. The worst atrocities in history were not typically committed by lone psychopaths. They were committed by ordinary people who were convinced that they were doing something good for their group. They were acting out of a twisted sense of loyalty and a belief that they were protecting their tribe from a dangerous them. Dehumanization is the switch that turns off our natural empathy. By labeling others as vermin, as subhuman, or as an existential threat, leaders can hijack our cooperative instincts for horrific ends. The road to hell is paved with in-group loyalty. So the cynical view isn't entirely wrong, it just misdiagnoses the problem. The problem isn't that people are inherently selfish. The problem is that our empathy and goodness are often local. The challenge of civilization has been to constantly expand the circle of us. We started with family and tribe. Over time, we have slowly, painfully, and with many setbacks, expanded that circle to include cities, religions, and nations. The great moral progress in history, the abolition of slavery, the fight for civil rights, the recognition of universal human rights, has been a story of expanding our definition of who deserves our empathy and cooperation. So, where does this leave us? For centuries, we have been captivated by the cynical story of human nature. We have believed that deep down, we are selfish beasts. Society is the only thing holding us back. This story is not just pessimistic, it is dangerous. It corrodes trust. It justifies inequality. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we expect the worst in people, we create a world where the worst is more likely to happen. We design systems of control instead of systems of collaboration. We build societies based on fear instead of societies based on trust. This story is a cage. We have been locked inside it for far too long. But a different story is not only possible, it is more accurate. Science and history show we are born to be good. Our default setting is to trust, to share, to cooperate. Our kindness is not a cultural overlay, it is our biological inheritance. Our darker side and cruelty and violence is not our true nature breaking through, it is a corruption, a deviation under specific conditions, often when we are manipulated by fear, often when we are manipulated by tribalism. The problem is not our nature, it's how the modern world can twist that nature. Believing in human decency is not naive, it is a realistic, revolutionary act. It gives a firmer foundation for the world we want, a world where schools foster curiosity, not just obedience, a world where businesses run on trust and on purpose, not just profit, not just oversight. It is the most powerful tool we have. If we tell a story of suspicion and of fear, we will build a world to match. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and never stop questioning what you know. Thank you for choosing ACEMED to train your brain.